Hey guys, Andrew Walls here with Shane Stoltz, and we're with Bigger Boat Education. Now, we are both educators. We are starting our school year. We wanted to make this podcast all about some quick ways we integrate EdTech into our classrooms just to kind of get the year going. And the first thing I want to talk about is Google Forms. I love student interest surveys and get to know you surveys, but I don't like a lot of papers. I don't like to cart that around or have to shuffle through papers when I'm trying to find a kid's specific answer. So Google Forms puts all that in one place for me, and it also lets me share some of the information with students in a way that's more anonymous. So I can put results up there from surveys to show kids how they have similar interests to other kids in the class without having to call them out on day one and say, would you mind sharing what you did this summer, or would you mind sharing what your favorite movie is? So that way kids can see how they are alike and different from other people in the class without having to go through the whole icebreaker routine that we usually do. So that's how I like to use Google Forms.
In a very similar fashion, I try to go with Adobe Spark. It doesn't give me the same option as Google Forms does with interest surveys, but it allows those students who maybe don't converse as well or don't socialize as well, gives them the ability to give their opinions or give their processes, or maybe tell a little bit about themselves in a more visual way. It gives them the option of using photos or videos or even words in a blog post, which is what it seems like they're the most familiar with, instead of writing all the time. So I use Adobe Spark a lot of times to do something very similar.
Very cool. You mentioned photos and things like that. I like using Google Sites as we kind of go through the class and get going to put photos of student work or things like that, or also just kind of as a resource for my kids. I built a Google site kind of for our class, and I found that we use Google Classroom and things like that, but parents and the community can't really access that as easily. They have to have logins or be in the Google ecosystem. But I found with Google Sites and using the right sharing features, I can make a lot of stuff available for parents or for kids outside of class. Maybe a kid doesn't want to go home, get on his or her computer, log into Google, and do all that stuff. They just want to pull out their phone, open up Safari, and see what they need to do. So I use Google Sites a lot for resources outside of the classroom to kind of supplement what we're doing in class.
Google Sites is a great idea when it comes to using in class. But one thing I really like to do in class is Padlet. Padlet.com is a great resource where it has the ability for kids to brainstorm new ideas, or even if they just want to share ideas across the classroom, or maybe notes that helps them remember what we did that day, or it's a great exit ticket so you can have them talk about what we've done that day. It also gives them the ability to be anonymous if it's set up that way, and it gives me the ability to check everything before they're posted, which is a big issue in high school, or I guess any school. But I want to make sure that what they're saying is coherent, that it doesn't embarrass them, but it also it doesn't lead to anything else. So it doesn't give them the ability to call someone out or bully or something like that. But Padlet.com, a great idea when sharing ideas in the classroom, and they can always go back and look at it in a safe environment afterwards too.
I like Padlet a lot. I do remember the first time that my students realized they could use the camera on their Chromebooks and attach a picture. I just got a lot of silly faces for about 2 days. Now, Google Classroom, do we talk about Google Classroom at the end here?
Yeah.
I love Google Classroom. I like how it streamlines the grading process. I'm an English teacher, so I get a lot of written word documents, and I've got to just pour through that stuff. And I love how it kind of organizes everything. And it just cuts down on paperwork at the beginning of the year. Paperwork is unavoidable. Schools run on paper, but at the beginning of the year, kids get a lot of papers. They get syllabi, and they get pacing guides, and they get packets and all this kind of stuff. I like using Google Classroom first and foremost just to put stuff there, get everyone together and say, here are the documents you need. Print them out if you want to, or don't. I'm not going to send you home in the first week of school with reams of paper for you to put in your backpack and never see again, or that you'll be like, oh, I should have turned this in, but it's the end of the year and you're dumping out your backpack in a trash can. That's why I love Google Classroom, to get everything going.
Yeah, I'm the same way. With Google Classroom, it gives me the ability to be organized, but it also gives me the ability to maybe save a little paper, save some money for our school, at the same time give them the exact same stuff. We go on lockdown when it comes to the end of the year at paper time.
Yeah, it gets tense.
It gets, people are searching for paper. With Google Classroom, I can send that home. I can give access to a parent if I need to.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it has some different options there. But it really allows me to. My favorite part about it is those kids who enter your class late. We all have them. We have 3 or 4 kids, especially in CT type courses where they've had to change their schedule to maybe fit something else in. They'll move from one class to another, and a lot of times that happens where the 3 kids come in and they're like, what do we do for the first 2 weeks?
Mm-hmm.
And I can instantly put them in Google Classroom, and they've got everything everyone else did, and they can have that time to sort of catch up with whatever I decide they need to have to get to that point, and skip the other stuff. So Google Classroom organizes everything. Another thing about Google that I actually used today was part of Drive, and that's Google Docs. I had my students today actually understand how communication works with across barriers. So I had them set in 2 different areas, but yet finish a paper on their own.
Oh yeah.
So 3 students typing on one document, they had to sort of come up with what works, what doesn't work, sort of how to communicate that if they were in different rooms, and they can sort of see how technology works.
Yeah.
Unlike they thought of it before. So it's really good feature that Google gives us there.
And I wonder, a lot of, as a teacher, we collaborate on a lot of stuff, and I wonder if workflow in general is moving in that direction where you have different teams in different locations and they all need to work on that one thing, and it kind of eliminates the whole like, hey kid, call up your friends and you have to go meet at someone's house on Tuesday afternoon and work on this project for 3 hours. Kids can work on things at different locations, and I guess that kind of translates well into where the direction workflow is going for a lot of companies.
I think all businesses are going to notice that it's cheaper to keep an employee in their own home than to build a massive infrastructure inside a single building. And that way they can just have, and students need to know that. They need to know how to communicate face-to-face, but also on shared documents. I think it's a good quality, a good learning lesson.
Awesome. Well, that's what we have for you today, guys. As we move forward in this, we'll start posting content about how to use some of these specific resources and things like that. So stay tuned for future developments, and we look forward to working with you guys to help you build a bigger boat.